Hello friends, by this time you are powerful Python programmers, so let us bestow the blessings of Bluefruit on our CPB. What we're going to do is we're going to learn how to use Bluetooth on our CPB and how to control the CPB using our Bluefruit app. Now there is a companion document at bit.ly cpb-circuitpython-exercises, and we're specifically going to be copying and pasting code because the reason for that is there is a lot of setup code to use Bluetooth, but the main thing that we're going to want to do, selecting different colors or working with the buttons, is going to be just a minor thing that we need to change. So with that said, let's dive into our code. So before we begin, I assume if you want to use Bluetooth that you are using a smartphone or have some kind of smart device. And if you Google Adafruit Bluefruit app, you will see that there are links for the free download in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, depending on whether you have an iOS or an Android device. Once you have this Google Doc up, I want you to find the section that's named Bluefruit Demo Code. And what I did was a Command F, or it's probably Control F on Windows. I typed in Bluefruit Demo Code. I jumped to that area right away. And the document's pretty big, so that's why I suggest the find command instead of trying to scroll to find it. And this gives information in terms of where you can download the app, of course. What's suggested that you do is make sure that you plug in your CPB and get Moo up and running. But then what we're going to do is we are going to grab the code below. I'll highlight this big block of code just before modifying the demo app. Copy that with Command-C or Control-C if you're in Windows. Open up Moo. I'm just going to paste this into a brand new untitled tab. And with your CPB plugged in and running the latest software, I'm going to double-click on Untitled in here. Make sure that it's saved as code.py. Replace anything that I've got in there. I am going to show my serial monitor here. Save again. Make sure that there are no problems. It looks like everything is looking good. This is my standard CPB. The only thing that's special about what's wired up here is the speaker, so you can hear it a little bit more loudly. And you can see that my Bluefruit app is up. Now, what you want to do is you want to look for something that says Circuit Pi on it. In fact, I've got a name on mine. It is C210. You probably want to pay attention to what the actual name of your device is, just in case you happen to be in a room where there are multiple devices. My students are going to be in a room where there are 50 devices at a time, so it's important to write this down, maybe mark it down on your smartphone so that you can tell which device is yours so you can connect to it. Then we're going to click on Connect. And you can see that it's connecting, and then we get a bunch of different options down here. Now, the ones that are going to work with the code that we're working with right now are all in Controller. So if we click on Controller, then we have some options down below here. One of them is Color Picker. Now, with Color Picker, you can go ahead and choose a color here, so maybe a nice purple. Then click on Send to Device, and whoa, look at that. We've got some things in purple. I'm not sure how well you can see that with the different colors here, but I just changed to blue. There's something that's a little bit more red. You can also slide this slider here, and it actually tones down the brightness, which makes the colors look a little deeper. Now I'm going to click on Controller in the upper left-hand corner. Now I've also set up some other things here under the Control Pad. So if you click on Control Pad, you get 8 different buttons that you can work with. So the directional buttons I've set up to be the first 4 colors. So here is color 0, color 1, color 2, and color 3. But I've also got 4 sounds to play when we press buttons 1 through 4. So here we go. I'm not sure how well you heard that, but those are sounds from our drum samples folder. So this is how we set things up. I'll pull the code up, but then I'll show you how we can modify it. And even though there's a lot of code in here, it is remarkably easy to control both the color picker as well as the buttons themselves. So let's get at it. I'm going to hide the serial monitor. If we take a look at our code, I'm going to scroll down to the end here. And I want you to notice this comment line that I have that says, this is where you can respond to a picked color or button press. Everything after this is where we can set up our code to respond to those buttons that are in the Bluefruit app. So you can see this bit right here that says, if is instance packet color packet. Well, that might not be a familiar piece of code for you, but right underneath we have this line that says pixels fill packet color. So what packet color is this is actually a valid color, just like red is a valid color. This is a number, if we went ahead and printed this out, that would be in between 2 parentheses. It would have 3 different numbers in there for the RGB color values. And this is how we set all of our pixel values to a particular value that the user had selected. And if you wanted to go ahead and have this work on a light strip, provided you configured the light strip and named it strip, you could just say strip.fill packet.color. Now if we scroll further down here, we have this other area that says if packet pressed. Now down here we have a bunch of different things that you can probably tell. This first bit here that says if packet.button button packet.button1, well, this is the same thing as if you were to write the line if button underscore a dot value. So this is going to be true if the user has clicked on that button number 1 on the control pad in the Bluefruit app. It's just like pressing a physical button. So if this is true, anything that we write that's indented here is going to execute. And here we have button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. Notice it's a little bit different here for up, down, left, and right. It's button packet dot up dot down dot left dot right, so you don't have the word button in there. But this is how you set up, and you can see for the first 4 buttons we are playing drum samples 0 through 3, and for the up and down arrows and left and right, what we're doing is we are changing all of the pixels to color 0 through 3. So now let's modify the demo app with some of the code that we've already written. And what I want to do is when the up button is pressed, what I'd like to do is execute the pulsing code that we wrote earlier. But what I'd like it to do is to pulse not in the color blue or indigo, what we were using previously, but in whatever color the user has selected. So in order to do this, before we set everything up, let's go and put in a default color. So if the user clicks on this pulse button, at least we'll start with a particular color, and we'll set it to blue. Now we also need to set a brightness and keep track of our brightness, because when we're done pulsing, remember we go from brightness 0 up to 1 and then down to 0 again. I want us to reset that brightness so that, the next thing that we do will be at the normal brightness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up to the top of our code here, and let's see, right after we define our colors, I'm going to declare 2 new variables here. So one is going to be called current color, and we'll just set that up to blue. So that will be our default color in code.py, just in case the user hasn't yet selected a color. And what we'll also do is we'll set current brightness. Again, we're creating this variable right here, and why don't we set that to 0.5? And you know what I'll do is I'll actually take this term current brightness here, this variable that I've just created, and I will swap this out for the literal 0.5 that I've got right in here. Well, now that we've set this up, what we can do is we can go ahead and take the same exact code that we wrote for brightness.py. So I'm going to go ahead and find that code, and I'm going to load it up in a new tab. So I click on load, and for my Mac, what I do is I just type in brightness.py. I had it saved on my Mac. And I'm going to open this file up, and let's take a look at the code that we've got in our while true loop. So I don't want to grab the indigo stuff, but I'm going to grab these 2 for in range statements. And I'm going to do a Command C, and I don't need brightness.py anymore, so I'm going to X out of it, and I'm going to go back into code.py. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new function. So underneath where I have play file, I'm going to define, just so I could type the code right in here, paste the code right in here, but just to make things look a little bit tighter and easier to read, I'm going to define a function, and I'm going to call this def color pulse. Open and close parentheses, and with a colon. And notice that this function is defined right after our play file function and just before while true. And I'm going to paste in the code that I had previously written here, and notice what we're going to do. We're going to go and change the brightness from 0 up to 1. That's why we divide by 100, because we can't go up by fractional values. And then we go from 100 down to 0. So up to, but not until -1. I should say down to, because we're doing a -1 step here. 2 more things that we need to do that we haven't done before. One is we want to set our brightness to 0. That's where we're going to start from, and then we're going to set our color to whatever color the user has selected. Now, that's currently current color, and we haven't updated our code yet to modify the user selection into this value, current color. But we're going to type in pixels.brightness equals 0.0. So that just sets the brightness down to 0 here, because what we're going to do next is we'll say pixels.fill, open parentheses, and it's going to be current color. And if we didn't set it down to 0, then we would see the lights show all in one color really brightly quickly before we went down to 0. Now when we're done, we're going to do the exact opposite of what we've done here. So after the last for loop, so our brightness is down to 0 at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set pixels fill to black. And the reason I'm going to do that is now I'm going to change my brightness back to what the current brightness is supposed to be. And if I didn't do this, then I would see the brightness showing in a particular color. And what I want to have happen is I want all the pixels to be off, but I want to reset the brightness. So I'll say pixels.brightness equals, and this is going to be current brightness. Now the one thing that I haven't done is I haven't grabbed the current color from whatever the user had selected. So current color is blue just because we set it right up front. But watch what we're going to do. We're going to scroll down here and remember this code here where we got the value that the user had selected from the color wheel. This is in our while true loop. This is this code here that says if is instant packet color packet. And underneath here we set pixels.fill to color packet. Now right underneath that I'm going to add a new line that says current color equals packet.color. And now when I run this code, what I should find is if the user selects a current color, I can go up and I can call this function. It will set the brightness to 0. It will set it to whatever the user's last selected color was, and it will go from 0 up to 1, then set everything to black, but then reset the brightness so that the next time I show a color, it will be at the expected default brightness. Now the one thing that we haven't done is we've set up color pulse here, but we haven't called it. And we said we wanted to call color pulse when we press the up arrow. So if we go down here, we see all these different buttons here, but this one here that says button packet.up, that is the one that will execute something when the user presses the up button. So instead of doing pixels.fill color 0, I'm backspacing over this and I'm just going to say color pulse, open and close parentheses. So now I'll click on the save button. And when I'm back in my iOS app, I should see that I have lost my Bluetooth connection to the CPB. That always happens when you resave your code. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reconnect to my device. I'm connecting. And I'm going to go over and select controller and then color picker. And I'm going to pick a color that I hadn't used before for pulse, which is maybe this sort of pinkish color right here. So it changes the color right away. Now I'm going to go back here into the control pad, and when I press up, watch what happens. It does the pulse up and down, and then we do it again, the pulse up and down. But remember, these 3 other buttons here will still set things to different colors. So there's my one color, my other color that I've got set up here. But if we do the pulse, again, it will pulse up and down, pulse up and down, but we can go back to the other color. So this is looking good. So hopefully you're feeling pretty good about that modification. Let's do some more. Let's grab the orange chaser code that we wrote previously and modify that so that it's a color chaser and it will chase the single pixel running around. In this case, it'll just be around the circle of the CPB, but in whatever color the user had selected already from the color picker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do load again and see if I can find orange. Do I have orange chaser in here? Let's see. Yep, orange chaser.py. I'll open this up. I'll scroll to the end. Here is the code that I wrote. I'm going to grab everything in while true. I'm going to get rid of our orange chaser. And now I'm going to go up and I'm going to create another function here. So instead of def color pers, I'm going to keep that in there. I'm not going to change any of that, but I'm going to do def orange chaser, open and close parentheses, colon, and I'm going to paste in this code right here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set that strip to black. And let's see, we're going to go from num to, we have num of lights in here, but what I should really be going to is num of lights was when we were working with a strip, and we're not working with a strip in here. But what I can do is remember to find the number of pixels in the list called pixels. We can just say len pixels, and this should give us the value that we want in here. And again, you could modify this if you were looking for the length of the strip or what have you. Now we're not using strip in here. We're going to say pixels, and wherever we had strip, I'm going to change that to pixels. And again, you can go back and change it to strip if you want to at some point. And instead of saying orange in here, we're going to call this the current color. We don't need to do anything with brightness because we're not modifying brightness in here, and we've already reset our brightness. And so now that we've written this function, remember we've got to call the function, and why don't we call this when we press the down arrow? And yeah, let's not call this orange chaser, we should call it color chaser. color chaser, because it's not chasing orange, it's chasing in whatever the current selected color is. And we'll do this for the down arrow. So I'm just going to scroll down here and see where is the down arrow. It's right here. We were previously filling this up with color 1. Now we're going to change it to just do color chaser, open and close parenthesis. And just in the way the color pulse was called with button up, with button down, we're going to call color chaser. Now that we've got this set up, we're ready to give this a try. And when I click on save, I lose my connection, but I can just click on OK and then reconnect to my device. And now if we go over to our controller here, our default color, if we go over to control pad and do down, is, see it's zooming around here in blue. Let's make sure that we can go ahead and change things with our color picker. So I'll go into color picker and let's make this a nice, that's pink. And now I'll go back into control pad, I'll press the down arrow, we get a pink chaser. Over and over again. So nice work. This is all set up, and it's taken our color picker, and let's make sure pulse is still working. Pulse is working as well. Doing a great job modifying this so far. And now for our challenge problem. What we're going to do is, if you click on the right arrow, what I'd like you to do is to light up pixel number 0 unless we've moved the pixel, and the right arrow should move the pixel around clockwise, and the left arrow should move the pixel around counterclockwise. So notice when we get to pixel 0, and if we're going clockwise, then we need to start at pixel 9 and go back 8765 all the way back to 0 again. If we're going 0 and then we end up at 9, then if we go counterclockwise, we got to go back to 0. So let's give that a shot. And we're back. So let's go ahead and see what we're going to do here. So if we click on our right button, what we want to do is we want to move the pixel around clockwise. So what we're going to be doing, actually, if this is the 0 position over here and this is the 8 position, so we're actually going to be subtracting when we go clockwise, and if we do the left button, what we're going to do is we're going to be adding. What we need to do is we need to pay attention to the current position of the pixel light. So you know what we should do is, in the same way that we set up a variable to keep track of the current color, let's keep a variable to keep track of the current light, the current pixel that's lit up. So I'm going to go back over here, and I am going to, right under current color and current brightness, I'm going to say current light position, and I'll say that equals 0. So we're going to start off in the upper left-hand corner. That's, I guess, probably around the 11 o'clock-ish position, although there are 10 lights, not 12, so it's tough to use time to show the position. But let's start off with what we're going to do with when we're on left first. So the first thing we're going to do is, if we want to take one pixel and we want to move it around left or right, let's set all of our pixels to black first. So if there's anything up there, we're going to get rid of everything. And then what we're going to do is we are going to increase the current light position. So if the current light position is 0, then we're going to add 1 to it. So we'll say current light position equals current light position plus 1. And then what we need to do, though, is it's possible if we are at light position number 9, if we press 1, then we're going to be at 10, and that's not what we want. We want to go back to 0. So we're going to set up a conditional down here where we say if current light position is greater than or equal to, and again, you want to make sure that your greater than or equal to are next to each other. There's no space in between. And that's going to be the length of pixels. And what's nice about this, too, is you can just swap out pixels for strip if you happen to use a light strip at some point, and then put in a colon. So if we are at, or we've gone past the number of pixels in here by adding 1, then what we want to do is we want to go back to 1, so, or back to 0, which is the first light number that we've got. So we're going to say current light position equals 0. And then what we'll do down here is we'll say pixels current light position. Remember, it's bracket, and then we just say equal whatever color we want, and that's going to be our current color. And then why don't we, just so that we can see what the code is doing, why don't we do a print and then open parentheses, and we'll put in a label in here that just says current light position equals close quote. So this is just text. It's going to print that out, but then by doing comma, then we can type in the actual variable here, current light position, and hopefully that'll go ahead. Just want to make sure I spell it right. I do. It's going to go ahead and print out the current light position, so we can take a look at that. And I'll do another print line down below, and I want this to say current color equals, and again, this is just a label because it's in quotes, so that's just going to print out as text, and then this is going to be the 3-digit value for our color. So now that we've got this all set up here for what's going to happen in left, what's going to happen in the right side should be just like this, but it'll just be the opposite. So I'm going to paste this in here, the same thing that I have under left under right. I'm going to set my pixels to black, but what I'm going to do in the second line here is I'm going to set current light position to current light position, but it's going to be -1. And then what I'm going to check here to see is not if current light position is greater than or equal to the length of the pixels. I'm going to see if it's less than 0, because I don't want to go past 0. And if it is past 0, then I want to send it to the last pixel. So remember, what we want to do is we want to say len pixels, but we don't want to say just len pixels because we're 0 indexed. So the last light is light number 10, but they go from 0 to 9. So we want to say len pixels -1, and then that's going to set it up. So, if we continue to go in this direction here, we're at 0, then we want to go over to this one here. Well, it's not the 10th one, it's the 9th one, even though there are 10 in there, 0 indexing. We're going to set the current position to the color, and we're going to print out the color light position, and we're going to print out the color, and hopefully this is all going to work. Let's see. And we'll click on save, and we should lose our connection to our app, but we can go ahead and reconnect, and we will go ahead and choose a color. How about this nice bright green that we've got? And it changes color, so that's looking good. And let's go back and hit the color pad. And what if we go right? Whoa, we're moving around left and right, which is fantastic. What if we want to run around here by pressing on our down arrow? That's working great. What if we do a pulse? That's looking fantastic as well, but we can still go left and right. So hopefully you feel really good about modifying your Bluefruit app. You did a great job here. Keep at it.